Hey, Nick, what's up, man? How
Oh,
are you?
what's up, dude?
Um,
Thursday.
it's Thursday. It means we got a show to do, and I
That's
just
right.
have to ask, what are you doing? What's with the trophies?
Well, Ash Crossan's on tonight,
Yes.
and she's a big deal. Entertainment Tonight. So I'm trying to impress her. I've got some trophies that I'm polishing them up, getting them
Okay.
ready. Want to have them in the background because when you have a big deal Hollywood reporter on, like you want to impress them with how impressive you are, right?
So, what have you won your trophies for?
Well, I have a chili cook-off trophy that someone left at my house. I also
Okay.
have a uh, Scouts Pinewood Derby trophy that my daughter won a couple. You know, come to think of it, these actually aren't my trophies. Um,
Well,
is that awkward? Is that weird?
it's not weird for me. I mean, it may be weird for you. I'm fine with it, but you know, we do have an Emmy Award winner coming in, so it's nice that you're setting that up. That's good. That is good.
She's an Emmy Award winner. Well, maybe I'll put these away, but does she know that you are an award-winning shill?
I don't know, but we can make sure to tell her when we get into this week on ATG Live. Well, welcome to ATG Live. I was going to say the all new ATG Live, but it's not new anymore, Nick.
Not all new
We've been
anymore.
doing this since if
Yeah,
we were
we've been here a
if we
while.
were watching things fiscally, we would be in the second quarter. Right now, we're
This is true.
running along. Things are doing great. This is your home though. Now it's not your new home. It is your home. It's Thursday night. Where are you going to go? There's a couple choices, but this is the one to go to. Hang out with us on Thursday nights for all your Star Wars news, information, conversation, your comments, your voicemails, and some of the greatest guests in the Star Wars universe. We are honored to have Ash Crossan tonight, but I'm honored right now to have my co-host and good friend Nick Mielke with me. Nick, how's it going, my friend?
You know what? It is fantastic. It is one of the highlights of my week is getting to hang out with you on Thursday nights, to get to hang out with all of our friends who are joining us in the chat, and we'll be jumping in as the show gets rolling. And like you said, we get to talk to some of the coolest people, not only the guests we've had in weeks past, but our guests tonight. And that's no small thing because we also have, and we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, again later in the show, Podathon is coming up. Podathon is less than a month away.
Oh my gosh.
And we haven't said a lot about Podathon, but don't be fooled. That doesn't mean it's not there. There's a whole bunch of stuff right under the surface that we're excited to start
Podathon
announcing.
24 is like the classic duck on the glassy pond. Like right now you're like, are they even doing anything? But oh my gosh.
They're doing something all
We're
right.
doing stuff. We are doing stuff. We can say though that we have some phenomenal prizes. So let me just say that I'll throw that out here
Yeah.
as part of the housekeeping. If you go to bit.ly/Podathon24 or go to thepodathon.com and donate today. For every $10 you donate to Make-A-Wish, Podathon, we've done this. This is our fourth year. For every $10 you donate through Podathon, you're going to get an entry to win prizes from Regal Robot, from Denuo Novo, from Brian and Holly Fry, from we've got autographs, we've got so many, we've got books, Chronicle. A lot of you were watching us last week or 2 weeks ago when we had the Jedi Archives book. You can win one. We've got Kelly Knox's book. We've got all these things going on. But for every $10 you donate at thepodathon.com or bit.ly/Podathon24, all lowercase, for every $10 you're going to get an entry into the raffle at the end of the day. And I'll tell you what, if you do it before midnight on May 3rd, we're going to give you 2 entries beforehand. So if you pre-donate, if that's a word, it is now. Pre-donate now. You're gonna get double.
So let's just say I donate $100. That would have been 10 entries, one for every $10. But if I do it between now and May the 3rd, that's actually 20 entries into winning prizes. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. If you donate $1,000, right, that's going to get you not 100 entries, but 200 entries to win. So, but again, it's not just about the winning. I mean, the winning is nice, and we have some really amazing guests that are coming up. I really can't wait to be able to talk about it. But it's all about Make-A-Wish. It's all about changing the lives of children who need who need it more than anybody else. They need
hope. And we've said it every time we talk about this, but it is worth mentioning again. All of the money that you donate goes directly to Make-A-Wish. We have a fundraising page set up with them, so we don't get any of that money.
Right.
It doesn't come through our hands. We want it to go directly to Make-A-Wish so that they can make it most effectively used to granting wishes to these kids. And then your prizes are going to come from the folks that have are donating your prizes to Novo, Regal Robot. They've been such great partners to sponsor. And like I said, there's so many others that this is what it's all about. And the shows are going to be fun. The guests are insane. I know we've announced already Paul Sun-Young Lee, Matt Martin, and Pablo Hidalgo. Those are the ones that we are able to talk about, but there's a whole bunch more right around the corner that we're going to talk about.
Just got some more news literally before we came on. So things are going great. And there's headlines to go over for Star Wars tonight as well. But Nick, maybe before we do that, maybe you want to do our little housekeeping things tonight?
I will be glad to do our housekeeping things. Right. Honestly, the best thing we can do housekeeping wise is you can go to theSSWnetwork.com. There you will find all of our social media links, our merch store. We have t-shirts, we have glasses, mugs, you name it, anything with logos and silly designs. If you use the code SHILL15, you will get 15% off of your order. You can also find our Patreon program. There's a link for that as well. We would love for you to join our Patreon program, become a patron, if you will. For as little as I think it's $3 a month, you can get access to all of the podcasts that we record for Around the Galaxy. We've had recent guests like Clinton Yates from ESPN, Ardo Cal. Who else have we had recently that I'm forgetting about?
It's been, I can't even keep up with it. It's funny because a lot of those guests also either then come over to this show or then go over to the other show. So
some of them are going to help us with Podathon. So you can get access early to those interviews when we do our long form interviews for the actual audio podcast. We have meetups, we send out swag. There's a lot of stuff, and y'all supporting us helps us continue to put on these shows that we love to do. So all of that can be found at the SSWnetwork.com. We also have a voicemail line. I don't know if we have any voicemails this week.
We have one this week.
We do have one this week. So if you call 504-321-1501, leave us a voicemail. Bad Batch is picking up the last of its speed and steam headed towards the finale. You may have thoughts about that. Call and leave us a message. Acolyte's on the way. You may just want to talk about how good Pete and I's haircuts and beard trims look, because we're both, looking very trimmed and grown up these weeks. Call and leave us a message, 504-321-1501. Talk about Star Wars. We'll play it on the show. I think that's most of it. Like you said, we've got news coming up. We're going to talk about, what are we talking about? Outlaws. We're talking about the Disney lawsuit. We're talking about George Lucas. Imagine that, a Star Wars show talking about George Lucas.
Weird.
And some Dawn of the Jedi news. So all of that is coming up in a few minutes. And after we get done with the news, like we mentioned at the top of the show, Ash Crossan, Emmy award-winning producer and correspondent for Entertainment Tonight, everybody's favorite panel host, and honestly, just one of our favorite Star Wars friends, is going to be here to hang out and talk to us as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for doing that, Nick, because I would have forgotten all of it tonight. So I appreciate it. It's because we're not new anymore. We've been doing this for 3-4 months now. But again, thank you for hanging out with us. If you are hanging out with us for the first time, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Make sure, if you're watching us on Twitter, we know a ton of people are watching us on Twitter. Make sure to comment and do me a favor. Just do a real quick share. All you do is hit that little, at the bottom, it's like these little arrows, looks like recycling. Hit that button, share it. Let some people know you're hanging out with us. But we will be back in just a minute with our news and more ATG Live. Well, welcome back to ATG Live, your Thursday night home for all things Star Wars news, Star Wars conversation, your conversations, your thoughts, your comments, your voicemails. We have all of that. And as we said, every week we have an amazing guest or two. And this week we are joined by Ash Crossan, who will join us straight up right after the news. So you know what? I'm not going to waste another minute. Let's get to the news. Well, developer Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft unveiled a new trailer for Star Wars Outlaws, the new video game, on Tuesday of this week, showcasing the game's characters, the plots, and the environments. The trailer reintroduced characters Kay and Nix, offering glimpses into the game's narrative involving Kay's ascent within the criminal syndicate ranks, including interactions with the Pikes, Jabba the Hutt, and Crimson Dawn. Lady Kira, who we first met in Solo: A Star Wars Story, will be featured in the game, but she will not be voiced by Emilia Clarke, unfortunately. Star Wars Outlaws is set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, promising a dense city experience and various mini-games such as a rhythm-based lockpick game, which sounds pretty cool, potentially playable sabacc, which sounds great, and of course, there's lots of action and shooting and flying and things like that, which we can't wait for. Additionally, 3 editions of the game, a standard, a gold, and an ultimate, will be available, each offering different content and future story expansions at differing price points. Ubisoft confirmed that the game's release date is August 30th. Now, Nick, because it is Star Wars social media, there was a bunch of people who were whining and complaining about things, including the price points, etc. But I'm going to take a second and really focus on the positives that we saw. You know, you can't judge a game based on the sizzle reel and a 2-minute trailer. Right. I'm excited about the time period. I want to. I love the fact that you can. I mean, let's think about it. When we were kids, us Generation X kids, the time between Empire and Jedi was like an awakening for us as it relates to sagas and fandom, because we were waiting and we couldn't wait to get more information. And now we're going to get to play in there. And the Empire's gotten cocky, and Boba Fett and the bounty hunters are taking over. It's going to be great. We're going to see Tatooine. We're going to see Kijimi and Canto Bight. And I think somebody said Batu may have even been seen in the game. But Nick, what are your thoughts as we get more information on this fun looking game?
Well, the first thought I have is I probably need to start selling, unnecessary body organs so that I can buy a PlayStation 5, because I'm sure it's not going to be available as a hopelessly old person on my PlayStation 4.
No, I don't think it will be, no.
But it's exciting. It looks great. It looks like a fun storyline. I mean, who doesn't love bounty hunters and scoundrels and, the underworld? We've had so many conversations over the years, both with the show Underworld and the canceled Boba Fett video game from years ago. That's a world that Star Wars fans, certainly ones that play video games, want to play in and want to hang out in. So it all looks like positives. It's exciting to hear there's more Kira stuff. I don't think it would be great if Emilia Clarke did it, but I don't think it's going to ruin anything that she's not, because it's a character that people love, and we don't ever know. No one's ever really gone. She's going to show back up somewhere.
That's right.
So I think it's something to look forward to. Of course, I hate that we can't literally have anything new announced without somebody taking a dump all over it. But you know what? It didn't ruin my week that somebody went, ooh, I think, the character looks dumb.
Yeah.
Here's the hypocritical side of that. There wasn't really anybody complaining about what Cal Kestis looked like when both of the Jedi games came out.
Well, I will go on record as saying I thought he looked a little frumpy. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, come on. So if we're going to criticize, let's criticize equally. But again, everybody. It's a video game that was not owed to anyone. It's something else in Star Wars that we're excited to get. So let's be excited about games. Hey, guess what? It's a game. It's fun. It's not.
And what I love is that the Star Wars games now are adding to the lore. They're not just, they're not separate sort of thing. So I'm excited about it. It's coming out at the end of August. My daughter's birthday and my son's birthday are right around that time. So I think I'll be getting
them.
I'll be getting them a copy. Right. So their birthday gift is going to be like Dad sequestered another side of the house playing the brand.
Maybe the gift is you'll go play that and leave them alone.
That's right. Hey, they're at that age, so maybe that's
right.
All right.
Well, moving right along, George Lucas is going to be honored at Cannes. George Lucas will be honored with the honorary Palme d'Or at the closing ceremony of this year's Cannes Film Festival, as announced by the organization. Lucas expressed gratitude, stating that Cannes has held a special place in his heart since his first film, THX 1138, was selected for the program for new directors when it was released in 1971. The event, scheduled for May 25th, it's a good day, coincides with the 47th anniversary of the release of Star Wars and will be broadcast live in France. Last year, Harrison Ford received the same award during the first screening of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Since selling Lucasfilm to Disney, George Lucas has led a more private life, but still seems to remain pretty influential. He publicly recently supported Bob Iger in Disney's proxy fight with Nelson Peltz. He also attended the premiere of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Despite limited public appearances, he has also maintained some involvements in projects like The Mandalorian, and he has still maintained, in fact, I saw it earlier today, he is ranked as the #1 celebrity billionaire by Forbes magazine. Tough gig, good work if you can get it.
Yeah, it's our goal.
Here's the thing. I think that my 2 cents is this is a well-deserving award for someone who has honestly changed the motion picture industry.
Yeah.
You can track significant changes in cinematic timelines, pre-Star Wars, post-Star Wars.
Yep.
Not only did the movie itself have an effect, the storytelling, the things that came with it, but also the development of technology, the creation of ILM. Like, these were genre-changing, industry-changing things that he did. And the ripples have just, continued to go outward and outward for, 45, 50 years now.
Yeah.
So he's certainly an elder statesman in the film industry. He has a passion. He has a vision. As I referenced a minute ago, in Star Wars, no one's ever really gone. So here's my question.
Yeah.
George Lucas, do we have a time where, without the weight of owning it, carrying it, being in charge of it anymore, do we get George Lucas to direct another Star Wars project? Could it be a film? Could it be live action TV, which was a newer thing that he didn't do? He's done animation. Could it be animation? What would you say to the creator himself comes back to fully officially direct a project?
So the realistic side of me says no. There's just nothing that gets him there, right? But we are playing in fantasy land here, so let's go there. I believe George would absolutely love to get involved in animation. I think because of the fact that, and I have kind of a hot take, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit later, but I think Star Wars animation is doing some of the best Star Wars. Not even, I don't think, I know, I would die on that hill that some of the best Star Wars is happening in animation. And I think the types of stories that George would like to tell, types of stories that George would like to put together would probably work best in animation. So get George, if he's going to be involved, let's give him an opportunity to do a short series, like maybe a piece of a Tales of the whatever, maybe Tales of the Midichlorians or something.
Hey,
and let him tell that story, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the area. I mean, obviously, he's had some connection to Mandalorian. He showed up on set. I believe the understanding is maybe he kind of helped direct. Is it the cape room scene in Solo? Yep. He was on set for that. But animation is kind of, the Clone Wars, he and Dave Filoni did that together. Like, maybe there's the opportunity for him to come and do something else with Dave. The Tales of Anthology series is perfect. He doesn't have to do 22 episodes of something. He could do 7 or 8 of a story that, honestly, because he doesn't have to rely on Star Wars, it could be hobby at this point. This is a story I'd love to tell. Of course they'd let him do it. I mean, let's go. It's not about a job. It's about a passion, which could make the story even better.
Totally agree. Completely agree with that. I think that's let's just see it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's our next story. On Tuesday, Disney's lawyers took steps to dismiss Gina Carano's February lawsuit, which claimed wrongful termination from her role in The Mandalorian. Disney asserted the First Amendment prerogative in Carano's firing, citing an Instagram post where allegedly she downplayed the Holocaust. I say allegedly, but if you read it, I think there's not a hell of a lot of interpretation needed there. Carano's suit argued her dismissal violated her freedom to express personal political beliefs, and Disney countered with a motion to dismiss, asserting its right to distance Carano's speech, to distance themselves from Carano's speech. The case underscores debates surrounding social media speech rights, notably backed by Elon Musk's funding of Carano's legal challenge, Carano's contentious posts on COVID measures, the 2020 election, and trans rights contributed to her firing. Disney's motion singled out the Holocaust analogy post as a pivotal factor, deeming it insensitive. Carano also alleged sex discrimination, highlighting differing treatment compared to male counterparts. Disney maintains its prerogative to do what they want based on what's best for them. I'll put it this way, Nick, and I've had way too much to say about this, but I'll say it again. It's another nail in the coffin of a victim of career suicide. I've said it before. I'll say it again. She was an up and comer. She was great in her role in Deadpool, which is where I first saw her. But she was, honestly, she was the most wooden actor in the Mandalorian cast. And yet it was really crystal clear that Filoni and Favreau were planning to lay down the yellow brick road for her. It was going to be there was a huge runway for her with the Rangers of the Republic, but she decided the social media mouthing off was more important than her career. So when we had John Roca on a couple weeks ago, I said, and I'll say it again, she's like one of those pro athletes that has the wrong people surrounding her, the wrong people speaking in her ear, telling her, hey, go ahead and do this and do that. When your company tells you, hey, cool it a little bit, all it would take would be somebody with enough intelligence to tell her, Gina, we get it, we respect. And honestly, I respect somebody's convictions. I don't respect what her opinions were at all, but I respect the conviction. But damn it, that's just stupid. You've thrown away your career. If I have a multi-million-dollar track ahead of me as an actor in Star Wars, and Disney says, do me a favor, just stay off social media for a couple months,
right,
I'm going to do it. So she's also a PR nightmare right now. So it was easier to move on without her. So I don't know. I mean, we've said so much about this. I don't have a hell of a lot more to add other than playing victim is ridiculous. She is not the victim here. And the case just seems completely frivolous. And I guarantee this gets thrown out in no time.
I would say there's no way this doesn't get thrown out and dismissed. It's just, several wise people have said over the years, yes, you do have freedom of speech. You do not have freedom from the consequences of your speech. And 100%. That's what this boils down to. She could have been quiet. She chose not to be quiet. So you have to deal with what happens when you choose not to be quiet. We've all said things we shouldn't have from time to time, and we have to deal with how that works, whether it's with a spouse, a friend, a coworker, a job. That's the way it works. She's no different, and she wasn't put upon. There have been other people who, have been in these same situations. But again, we talked about weeks ago, she's trying to sue her way back into a job. Like most awkward workplace ever. You don't want me here. You let me go, but I'm fighting to get back in. How's that going to be the next time we have to make an episode of something? Like,
that's going to make for a lot of fun on the set, right? Yeah.
That's not it. So this is heading in the direction that has been pretty predictable from the beginning, but it's still making news and we're still a little bit talking about it. So here we go.
Exactly.
One more news story, and then we're going to get to our excellent guest. The I Can't Swim writer is going to help pen the Dawn of the Jedi movie. Hollywood Reporter has recently revealed that Beau Willimon, who Star Wars fans know for his Emmy-nominated work on Andor Season 1, is teaming up with James Mangold, director of the Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny movie, to co-write Lucasfilm's upcoming Star Wars movie that is tentatively known as Dawn of the Jedi. Alongside his expected return for Andor Season 2, Willimon received acclaim for writing Episode 10 in the first season, which included the poignant I Can't Swim moment, as well as, and honestly, this Luthen Rael monologue is one of my favorite pieces of Star Wars dialogue, period, in the history of this entire franchise. It's that good. He has an Oscar nomination for The Ides of March, and he also has his role co-creating House of Cards on Netflix with a little guy you may know as David Fincher. Willimon brings a wealth of experience to the project. Dawn of the Jedi is going to be exploring the origins of the Jedi and the Force. This marks a significant collaboration for both Willimon and Mangold, and will certainly have an impact on Star Wars canon going forward. There is no release date. We really don't have a lot of information about the movie. It's been announced. It is moving forward. My opinion is this is a top-level hiring decision. Beau Willimon has an amazing track record. I don't know, the Kevin Spacey of it aside, House of Cards was a phenomenal, series. The original BBC version is great. The version that they did on Netflix was really, really good. His work on Andor is outstanding. Like I said, that monologue from Luthen, working with Tony Gilroy. So the trend I'm seeing here is pair an amazing writer with an amazing director and let the magic happen.
Imagine
Gilroy
that.
And, Tony Gilroy and, Beau Willimon for Andor, James Mangold, who, not only Indiana Jones, but the Logan movie that, is so good. These are great creators that have a synergy and have the ability to kind of lift each other up and elevate each other's craft. And I think that's really cool. I also think for a movie like this and the topic that it seems to be headed towards, the origins of the Force. Let's let this have that ancient epic feel to it. We watched a couple weeks ago, we watched the 10 Commandments. I watched that movie a ton growing up. Gone with the Wind, Godfather 2, even the scope of an epic movie that focuses on something that's lore building, like that just seems like something designed for two people like Mangold and Bo Willimon. Like, let's let that go. So here's my question. We always love to play these. What other writer-director combo would you like to see doing a similar thing, elevating Star Wars in new ways?
That's a good one. You did reference the magic that happens, and if you look at The Empire Strikes Back as an example of Irvin Kershner and George Lucas and Katz and everybody who was involved in that, just an amazing and Leigh Brackett with her first draft, which changed that story. But who would I love to? I would love to see Rian Johnson again, but what about, here's a crazy one. Rian Johnson directing a Dave Filoni written story. Because look, I love Dave Filoni. He's I hate to sound like the Dave Filoni fan club, but I mean,
we are, and it's fine.
He studied under George, right? So he brought some amazing things, but I think some of the live action stuff has been not bad, but not the best of the stuff the seasons he's been involved in. Hand it over to a Rian Johnson, or honestly, better yet, Spielberg. Let's get Spielberg directing a Filoni movie, and you have an unstoppable Star Wars movie
all the
with kids in it. Focus on some Padawans, right? So Spielberg can pull that kid stuff that he can do, and have Filoni be bringing the lore, and we have, I think, just about the perfect Star Wars situation.
You can't lose anyway. It's more Star Wars, right?
Exactly. It's more Star Wars. Well, that is our news for tonight. It almost feels kind of strange doing news before our upcoming guest, because she comes from Entertainment Tonight, which is where you should be getting all of your entertainment news.
Not from these two idiots.
Not from these two bearded wackos. But I'll tell you what, we're going to take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined by Ash Crossan from Entertainment Tonight. So we'll be back with more ATG Live. And we are back with more ATG Live. We just ran a quick commercial there for Make-A-Wish. Remember, Make-A-Wish and Podathon coming to you all day. Saturday, May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. We know there's a lot going on. We know there's like 9 movies that are all being run back to back in certain parts. The Phantom Menace is coming back. Tales of the Empire is dropping that day. You're going to be in such a Star Wars mood, but add to the Star Wars giving mood and join us for Podathon on May the 4th. And you can donate today by going to bit.ly/Podathon24 or head to thepodathon.com. For every $10 you donate before May 4th, before the show itself, you're going to get 2 entries to win some amazing stuff from De Novo. Lucasfilm is giving us a prize pack. They have never failed us with their amazing prize pack. You are not going to want to miss it. So please join us for that. But before I continue rambling, we have an amazing guest tonight. So Lloyd, let's just get to it. Ash Crossan is with us from Entertainment Tonight.
Hi, guys.
How are you?
I'm so good. I haven't done a podcast in so long. So I'm so,
that's because you're like a big Emmy winner now. You're like a big deal.
No. But when you asked me, we were talking about promoting Podathon, which is such a good cause. So I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Well, so good to see you. So good. I mean, it's you're probably going to be on stage somewhere soon doing another, like San Diego con. I don't know, what's the next con you're going to be doing? Do you know?
I've been up to some stuff behind the scenes.
See, that's the hard part about talking to you now. Is you're like, hey, get some things.
When I did Hall H Marvel, I couldn't tell anyone until I was physically on the stage. So
oh wow,
a lot of my friends were like, "Oh," and I was
where
like,
are you going, Ash?
Yeah.
I'm just going to be gone for a minute. That's all. Well, we are thrilled to see you. I was thinking about this earlier this week, getting ready for the show. And I don't even know if you can brag this or not, Pete, but I am able to brag that I have had an Emmy winner buy me a shot at a bar at Star Wars Celebration. And that young lady is on the screen with us tonight. We were at Celebration in Anaheim hanging out. Ash came in. Great, so kind to stop because everybody wants to talk to you because you had already done the panel.
So that was right after I hosted.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was right after the panel for, it was a Mando panel, wasn't it? No, because Chopper was on stage. It was
it was Ahsoka.
Yeah, it was the Ahsoka the panel that you hosted. So everybody's at the bar at the hotel that night. Everybody's hanging out, lots of Star Wars fun. But you were so kind to stop. And literally, I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And you're like, "Hey, you want a shot?" And I was like, "Of course I do." And you went and bought everybody around a shot. So
I couldn't celebrate all weekend because I was like doing stuff on camera the next day. So I was finally done in that moment, and I was like, "We're all drinking."
Yep. Game on. Yep, let's go. So it was a great moment, and I can officially say I've had a shot bought for me by an Emmy winner. So that's a big deal. But we're glad you're here tonight. And in the off chance, and I can't imagine how this is possible, but in the off chance somebody doesn't know Ash Crossan, doesn't know who you are, give us just a quick background on who Ash is.
Sure. Okay. I'm really bad at bragging, but I will try. Okay. Hi, my name is Ash Crossan. So I'm a producer and digital correspondent at Entertainment Tonight, which I've worked there since 2012. Sans 1 year I left and worked at Screen Rant. So you might have seen my stuff there. I do a ton of things behind the scenes, but front facing, I do a lot of various carpets, junkets, moderating panels. You'll see me doing like sit down interviews, typically with like genre talent or fandom talent. So Star Wars, Marvel, DC on the show side lately, The Last of Us, Fallout, typically just fandom driven stuff. And then, as mentioned, I moderated Marvel Studios Hall H, Star Wars Celebration panels, Paley Fest with Mandalorian, lots of stuff with John and Dave. The only dream interview I really have left is Eminem. Not sure that will ever happen, but I've been very, very blessed.
Well,
a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, but very blessed.
Well, and I think you're going to have to at some point probably call Pedro and find out how he feels about the fact that Kyle MacLachlan is now trying to horn in on being your new best friend.
I know. Well, Kyle MacLachlan's social media is so good.
Yeah, they're on top of it for sure. So seeing that from the Fallout, premiere here just recently, that's been a lot of fun. Seeing you get to have those interactions. But I have said this, I think we've said this before, even when you've been on with us, but we have several friends that like you, Christina Ariel, like you're one of us, but you're also getting to go let your job be a part of like doing all those other things that we're all so excited about. So having that person that's, you're out there representing all of us as a fan and a reporter and a correspondent. And so we always are excited every time you pop up on a panel, an interview, whatever it is. It's so great.
No, it means a lot. I mean, that's what I love about it so much is whenever I do those things, there is a lot of support in the room and that makes me love it. So, yeah.
We've had a question I've asked a couple people lately who are in a role where they get to speak to the actors and the creators of the stuff that we love. How do you, and I'm going to ask this having watched you almost every interview, it must be hard to separate the fan from the journalist. And so do you do that? How do you manage that so that you got to be you, right? I mean, you're always Ash, but
yeah.
How do you manage that so you're not totally fangirling out and getting your work done?
I think the one thing that I've struggled with, and not so much with Star Wars, but it's been with other things that I've been like passionate about over the years, is there's a point where you start watching stuff, like I start watching TV or movies and stuff, and I'm like, I can't calm down and watch this because I feel like I'm working. I have to constantly be like dissecting it. I mean, I'm sure you guys get this with the podcast sometimes when you're watching Star Wars stuff, you're like, oh, what can we talk about? What are our news angles? What are we gonna like dissect? Right. So it is kind of hard to like not make it feel like work. But at the same time, there's so much passion behind it. Like we can talk, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but like John and Dave, for example, when it comes to the Mandalorian stuff, they make you so involved so early on that you just they make you feel a part of the team to the point where you are so passionate and happy to be a part of it. And so when I get to that point, I'm just like, I just want to ask what I want to know as a fan. If I try to like sit there and be like, what does everybody want me to ask? I'm going to get way too in my head. I'm going to ask kind of silly stuff or stuff that's not going to work for me. I just say what I really want to know. And a lot of times to my, you know, it's a blessing and a curse. A lot of times things just come out of my mouth and I'm like, why did I say that? And then it goes viral.
It comes with the territory. That's okay. Well, and we want to talk about it. Like you said, we're going to get a little bit more into your career and some of the ways that has, you know, been affected by your fandom. Like Pete said, let's talk Star Wars for a minute. Let's dial it back to the beginning again. If somebody hasn't heard this story, I know Pete and I have heard it, but what are your earliest Star Wars memories? When did you first see it? How did it connect with you?
Yeah, so I've definitely told you guys this story before, but I saw it. So they re-released it in 1997. So I was, I think, 8 at the time. And my dad was like, I'm going to take you to see this movie. And I was like, no, I don't want to hang out with my dad, you know, like that age or whatever. So my dad takes me to the Movies 10 in Wilmington, Delaware. It was one of those movie theaters where your like feet stick to the floor, and it was like, you know, no stadium seating. So it's all flat. I remember we sat in the front row, and even back then, like the front row seats were so much closer than they are now. So you're really like this. Right. And I remember just like watching Princess Leia and being like, who is this princess? Literally. And I was her for Halloween that year. I would say the rest is history, but it was kind of like me and my dad's thing when I was younger. And, you know, a few of my friends were really into Star Wars, but it wasn't really until I started my career that I was able to really like find the community in Star Wars. I remember going to my first celebration was Anaheim. I want to say it was 2016, 2015. Does that sound right? And that's where I met Anthony Breznican, Jermaine Lucier. Like those people are still my best friends to this day. And some of my best lasting relationships have been because of Star Wars. And then the third part of that is I've been able to foster like a career out of it in a way. Right. So then that, like, it's kind of 3 parts of Star Wars that mean so much to me for different reasons.
So how did you kind of fall into the entertainment side of it? And did your love of Star Wars and other genre kind of things? Because obviously, I mean, anybody who follows you knows it's not just, Star Wars is really important to you, but all the stuff that all of us nerd out about, you nerd out about. But how did you go into the journalism side of it and entertainment journalism specifically?
Yeah. So I, you know, I went to school for broadcast journalism. I went to East Carolina, go Pirates. And I moved out here right after college to be in the entertainment industry. I thought I was going to be a producer, which I am, but like a producer, I never really thought I was going to be like an on-camera front-facing type of person. I didn't really think that was in the cards for me. And what ended up happening is I was a PA, and then I was an assistant, and then I was like an associate producer at the time. And something big had happened at work that day. I think there was like a big celebrity death or something like that. And it was the same day as the Ant-Man junket for Marvel. And we had to send all of our hosts and all of our talent to like a hospital and to all these various different news scenes and things like that. They were like, who's going to do the Ant-Man junket? And I remember being in this room and it was crowded, and I've never really like advocated for myself like that, which you have to do. And I remember just being like, I can do it. I can do it. I know a lot about Marvel. I can go do this interview. And I remember 2 producers looking at each other and they're like, should we? And they're like, we don't really have a choice. I'm like, okay, go for it. And I remember doing that interview and feeling like really nervous. You really never know how those things go when you're doing them until you watch the footage back, and then you're like, oh, that went a lot better than I thought, or a lot worse than I thought. And I remember a director coming up to me named Tom Weitzel, and he was like, hey, you did that Ant-Man junket? And I was preparing for like, oh no, what can I do?
Maybe.
He was like, you should keep doing interviews. And I was like, oh. And I remember that was a moment that kind of flipped the switch for me and kind of sparked that interest. But I also think passion is key. You know, I work at Entertainment Tonight. We cover an array of things. We cover, you know, every pocket of entertainment you can think of. But what works for me and why it's successful is that I'm passionate about the things that I talk about, and I can dig into it from a fandom perspective instead of asking, you know, if you sent me on I don't know, I can't think of an example, a shoot that I don't know anything about, I would probably ask surface level questions, and it would be a decent interview, but it wouldn't really be a fandom driven interview. So I think the fact that I'm able to do that is why I've kind of continued on that track.
Well, and it almost seems like, and this is going to be very generalized and kind of to come to your point you were just making, but like you're at work and it's Tuesday and there's a story about, The Young and the Restless, or a, soap opera thing happens. There may not be somebody that runs in the room and goes, "Hey, it's a soap opera thing, give it to Ash." It may be, "Hey, there's Marvel news." Does it kind of work that way? Do people have lanes and like it feeds?
Yeah, I think, we have like an array of talent and people kind of have their pockets of like, oh, they already have a relationship with this person, or oh, they're really passionate about this thing. We should definitely consider them for those things. Like, I'll give you an example. I did a set visit with JoJo Siwa for that Carmel video that's viral. And I remember being on that set being like, what am I doing here? But it ended up being fun for that reason, because I was like kind of a fish out of water, and that happens sometimes. And, when I do get assigned stuff I don't really know, I'm like, hey, I'm not an expert yet. I'm going to become one overnight. I'm going to stay up all night binging this show. But typically they try to make it
feed it in the right direction. Yeah, sure. Well, and I want to talk about and dig into this because this process fascinates me, certainly as a fan of, so many different things. But not only do you have your reporting, you have your Entertainment Tonight, that kind of stuff, but the panel hosting, like this has become something else that you have been known for. And you've done Celebration, like you said, you've done Hall H at Comic-Con, which is kind of like the top tier of, panel hosting. Talk to us a little bit, not only about getting into it, but like the process for that. Because of course there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, the preparation. Kind of walk us through what that kind of thing is like and how you got into doing that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first one I ever did was the press conference for Mandalorian season 1. And I remember John kind of coming up to me after and hugging me and being like, "Oh my gosh, that was so good. We want to use you all the time." So that's kind of how that track with them started. And they like to repeatedly work with the same people. So I've been really honored in that regard. But it's kind of different for every panel that you do. Like Star Wars Celebration is very different from Marvel Hall H, is very different from a fan event, is very different from like a FYC event, which is like a, for people who don't know, it's a 4-year consideration, like Emmy type event or Oscars or whatever. So Star Wars Celebration, like for example, is a conversation, whereas Marvel Hall H, I would more say was like a showcase where you're kind of just like moving it along. And yeah, they're all kind of different. So I approach them differently every time, but they are way more collaborative than you would think, specifically with those panels that I'm talking about. Because I've done panels in the past or moderated things where they're like, here is your cards and your exact phrasing, and here's your exact questions, and you need to ask in this order. They essentially give you a script to the point where, and I find that very frustrating because it's like, why am I here? You can kind of plug anybody into this. Like it's, I don't really like to do things that I aren't really in my voice, or I guess. And I used to not push back on that. But now I do. Now I'm very defiant. So really, but it like, for example, when I'm like Marvel Hall H, like Kevin Feige was really collaborative, and you don't always have time to meet up, like talk to these people beforehand or anything like that. But with Kevin, we did like a rehearsal, and we got to kind of work out all the kinks together, which was really interesting to me. So we would like kind of go through all the questions that I had, and he would kind of give me feedback and be like, "Hey, I think we're saying like," because when you do a panel like that and you're like, "Did you bring anything to show us?" He was like, I remember him being like, "That's like kind of a cliche. Like, let's find another phrasing for it." I'm like, "No, fair." And then, on the other side of it, it was really early on. I introduced him, and he comes out and does this, and then we're in the rehearsal, and he's like 15 minutes in, he's like, "You haven't really talked though." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "All right, we're gonna give you some more stuff to fill in here." And just like, he really made it like a really collaborative thing. And we really talked back and forth. And I felt like, he listened to a lot of suggestions that I had. And, Dave's the same way. John's the same way. Dave tends to go, ask knows what to ask. And he also, Dave knows what stories he wants to tell. Like anyone that's seen a Dave panel knows he is a storyteller.
That's right.
He's a talker. You don't really have to steer the ship too much with him. And in fact, you more have to like,
you have to pull him back sometimes.
Pull him back in. But he knows this. I've talked to him about this before. And then John Favreau is a really, really cool collaborator in that, like I mentioned, he brings people in really early. Like a lot of his teams that he works with, like editors, for example, he brings them in like the storyboarding stage, which is not typical of a project. So I'll give an example. We did a panel one time that was they wanted me to ask like a lot of like technical questions about The Mandalorian. And it was actually a fan event. And so beforehand, I think I had like 10 minutes backstage with John. I pulled him aside and I was like, John, like, I think the fans will appreciate if we lean a little more into like this. And I remember him going like, oh, I thought this was an FYC event. I'm like, no, it's like a fan event. There's tickets. And he's like, what questions do you want? And I was like, this. He's like, great, go, we're going. And like, so he really trusts me in that regard. I think that was something we had to build towards, obviously, but now that we're there, he genuinely is always just like, whatever you think, whatever you want.
And I think it's such a neat reflection. You've experienced this certainly working with them directly, but one of the most telling things for me was the very first season of, and I forget what it's called now, but the behind the scenes stuff that came out after Mando season 1. The gallery. Yeah. Yep. Like that episode when you've got Dave and John sitting around the table with Bryce Dallas Howard with all these other directors, like you can see that same dynamic. Like you see John as that engaging personality and Dave for everything we love about him. Like he's the nerd at the table going, well, here's why we didn't talk about this. And he's going to go on a whole path about the lore and the story and all. And so that combo is so fascinating to me. And surely, getting to see that and work with that directly has been really fun.
Yeah. I mean, they know every single person's name who works with them. Like they do not. And to be honest, you don't get that a lot. So they know, like they're so in it. And I love how they bring people in like that.
It's awesome.
Well, so I'm gonna turn this into some fan question for you, because so taking your fan side and taking your industry side, the last this year is the year of Disney Plus, right? This is obviously, we have 2 live action series. We have the surprise Tales of the Empire. We probably have Tales of the Jedi 2 coming. We got Bad Batch. 2025 and 6, probably not 25 realistically, but 26, we're going back to the theaters for Star Wars. What's your thoughts on the way stories will be told for Star Wars, the best way? And what do you, as a fan, how do you like to get your Star Wars stories?
Well, first of all, I have a rule now with Star Wars. Love Star Wars, but unless you're in production, I am not putting stock in it yet. Out too many times.
It's true. So those movies, they haven't started yet. So we're
this Taika Waititi movie that I'm never going to get.
Never going to get. I would love it. I know people are really burned out on Taika at the moment. He is still my favorite director. I would love to see his thumbprint in Star Wars.
His vision, would be wild.
Yeah. I love him. But I think they probably learned some lessons overall at Disney Plus from how much Marvel they were doing and how much they were introducing and how it was kind of a lot at once. What did they introduce, like 50 characters in a year in Marvel? Something like that. I'm making that number up completely.
Yeah, but it was huge.
It was something like that, genuinely. So I think them slowing down and pulling back, and which they have with Star Wars, we got a little break and now we're kind of getting in the groove again, is really exciting. Because I think, when you're making a trilogy or you're using the same characters like we've seen, there has to be kind of a cohesiveness to it. And there's not a lot of room for, I think, a super unique thumbprint. So I'm really excited to see the more personal touches and flavor of the creatives, honestly. Like we saw, I love Mandalorian. One of my favorite things. And then you see Andor with Tony Gilroy. And some people, that is their favorite Star Wars because it does have its own kind of identity. So like being able to branch out around different pockets of Star Wars, I think is the more exciting thing for me. Like the Acolyte, of course, being set in the High Republic. Like I always center when people are asking me about timeline stuff and they're like, when does this take place? I'm always like, if you think of how old Luke is, that will help you put it into place in the timeline. Acolyte, he's like -200. That's so exciting. So, but anyway, but what's more exciting for me about that is Leslie Headland and like her whole idea of doing what she call it, Frozen meets Kill Bill. Like that's really intriguing to me. Skeleton Crew being like more of a Goonies, Amblin kids type thing with John Watts, who nailed the Spider-Man trilogy. Super exciting. Again, people burn out on Taika, but I want to see whatever weird crap he wants to bring into Star Wars. The Glovers potentially doing Lando, like that excites me to see the freedom that the creators, I think, are starting to get and whatever thumbprint they're going to leave on it. That's more of the stuff I want to see. We saw that with Marvel, and then I think they maybe overdid it a little bit, but when like James Gunn came in and did this totally new thing in Marvel, I think we're kind of starting to see that chapter.
Yeah. Yeah. And for some reason, and this is where the frustration comes in, is Star Wars, there's a voice of Star Wars. And I always have to remind myself of this. There's a piece of the Star Wars fandom that's like, it's new. I don't like it. I don't want to know anything about it. But it's really a small piece. I think that's the thing. I mean, you see it more than anybody else because Entertainment Tonight is for the masses, right?
Yeah.
And we get into the social media stuff. We get into the show. We even see sometimes in comments, we're like, yeah, but no, it needs that. And Leslie is going to bring, I mean, gosh, look at Russian Doll, to just bring that kind of mindset to a Star Wars set in a time where all these characters could die in the first episode because we don't know their futures, right? So anything can happen. And I think I'm with you on that. I'm super excited to see.
It should be more, it should be exciting that not every piece of Star Wars is going to be for you. Like
Correct.
that should be an exciting thing.
Yep.
That's what I love about art. Like, you know, I remember walking out of like, for example, I remember I walked out of Barbie with a friend of mine and he was like, who was that for? And I was like, that was for me. That movie rocked. But like, it's okay. It's okay. If there's going to be stuff that comes out. I mean, not every piece of Star Wars has been like my favorite thing on the planet, but I love Star Wars. So it's fine. That's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when I interviewed you the first time, the way you put it was Star Wars is like your younger brother. You love him, but you don't mind making fun of him and telling him when he does something wrong. Right.
That's
so
it. No, it is like that. Cause it's like, there's certain people that like, you know, when they're saying stuff about Star Wars, you're like, okay, I know why we're all making fun of this, but you're genuinely punching down.
Right. Exactly. Well, Ash, we could keep you on for hours and hours, but
I got to go to the Jimmy Buffett tribute concert.
Is that where you're headed?
Outstanding.
Oh man. See,
Son of a Sailor. It's my favorite Jimmy Buffett song.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm like so excited. It's like, what is Pitbull gonna sing? Like Paul McCartney. What is this gonna be? I don't know, but I will post videos.
We'll look forward to following it on social media while you're there.
Well, Ash, where can people follow you on social media so they can catch this and all the other cool stuff you do?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter constantly, as you guys all know. That's at Ash Crossan. And then someone took that handle for Instagram. So I'm at Ash_Crossan for Instagram. And that's really where I post all my stuff. But etonline.com. I'll plug my job.
There you go. Well, excellent. Well, Ash, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch up with you on Podathon a little bit afterwards. Enjoy the show. Thank you so much for hanging. See ya. Bye. And we'll be back with more ATG Live. Well, welcome back to ATG Live. Let me make the screen big enough. You don't need to just see me. You need to see me. You need to see Nick. And you also need to see Producer Lloyd, who we're going to bring in. Producer Lloyd, how are you doing, my friend?
I broke my Warhammer model during the interview.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Very upset. I was sitting there gluing
it. Is that a euphemism? Because that sounds
I was literally gluing it back together during the interview. I dropped it and went, shit. It's currently sitting.
Well, we are definitely back. Always great talking to Ash. Ash is just like, Nick, you nailed it. She's one of us. She's one of the people. And by the way, I wasn't going to correct you with Ash on there, but you've gotten drinks brought for you by 2 Emmy winners, not just Ash. The second is our friend Greg Iwinski, who is now an Emmy winner himself, right? Or did we buy him drinks?
I think I bought him a drink. Actually, yeah. I bought him a drink, but
that was a hell of a
because I thought about that. Like, it's weird to go. Yeah, I know a couple people that have won Emmy awards. Not one, two more than I have, obviously. But
correct. Right.
Actually, Greg has 2. Ash has 1, so that's 3.
Man.
But yeah, either way, I'll count it.
Emmy winners, Oscar winners. We need a Grammy winner here
And
on
a
the show.
Tony. And a Grammy and a Tony to get that EGOT for, the Around the Galaxy EGOT.
We got it. We'll get there. Lloyd, hit us with the intercepted transmissions and let's see what people had to say tonight.
Where are those transmissions you intercepted?
Well, I know we have one phone call this week. We probably have a couple things that people said in the chat. The chat, although we have a huge number of people watching on Twitter, I don't know that all those chats are coming through. So if you're on Twitter, leave us a comment. It should show up. If you have something to say, we want to hear from you. But and also make sure you're sharing it. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And yeah, our YouTube and Facebook friends, thank you so much for being there with us. Lloyd, should we start with the call? Do you think?
Why not?
All right, Lloyd. Thank you. Let's
Welcome.
Hey, fellas, this is Matthew. Hey, I just had a random thought. I was listening to a sports podcast, and John Bon Jovi was on there, and he was talking, and they were asking some trivia. And I don't know if you guys knew this or not. They started talking about Star Wars, so I paid attention. John Bon Jovi's first paying gig as a musician for a song was in his cousin's studio in 1980. He made $186 to record on the Christmas in the Stars, a Star Wars Christmas album. R2-D2 wishes you a Merry Christmas. So you should go listen to that. That's a trip. All right, fellas. That's all I got for you today. Take it easy. Bye.
So
Not it.
It's just a bunch of beeps.
Yeah. No, I don't.
I did know this piece of trivia, and not only did I know this piece of trivia, but this is one of those things, and sometimes it happens after the show if I've had a little too much to drink and somebody mentions a piece of memorabilia, and then I do some late night irresponsible eBaying. I'm watching a couple and have been for a while now, and they're still in the like $115, $125 range to get a copy of that vinyl, but it is available, Christmas in the Stars, and it was Bon Jovi's first paying gig.
So it's not a tale from Eden; it's a tale from New Jersey this week. But
It's a
here's
Jersey tale.
Here's my weird connection to John Bon Jovi, other than both being in New Jersey. My dad used to work in Sayreville, New Jersey, and used to go to get his hair cut by a barber named Bon Jovi. And he used to tell my dad, he's like, my son's going to be a star. And he would show him pictures. And my dad was like, okay, yeah, you and every other guy here in New Jersey. And so my 6 degrees is Bon Jovi's dad cut my dad's hair. So
that's outstanding.
We're like brothers. Me and Bon Jovi
were basically the same guy.
So close. Yeah. We're like, John, what? Come on, give me a call, brother. Huh? But yeah. So Lloyd, did we get any interesting comments?
Not tonight.
It was a little bit quiet.
Yeah, it was very quiet on YouTube tonight.
And I'm going to pull up one because Lloyd's on screen and I did it for him. We were talking about director-writer combos, and Lloyd suggested possibly Matthew Vaughn and Gareth Edwards. And we've had Gareth Edwards certainly in Star Wars once before, but I like the idea of combos. I like the idea of, some dynamic duos that could work together on something. And this is very intriguing. Tell us more about your feelings on that.
Well, Nick, so I like the Kingsman, and I like how it flowed.
Yeah.
And I like how kinetic it was, right? So I feel like if Matt was able to direct it and Gareth was able to write it, I think we'd have something.
I think Gareth Edwards is completely underrated as a writer. I think,
much so.
Godzilla is really good of all the Godzilla movies. And yes, it's got Breaking Bad in it for 5 minutes before he dies. Spoiler alert. But of the Godzilla movie, and people are like, well, you don't get Godzilla enough. And I'm like, that's what makes it great. It's what made Jaws work, dude. And the creator, holy cow. I think creator is woefully underappreciated. I wish I saw it on the big screen. I too waited till Hulu or whenever it was. But yeah, and of course Rogue One. Jeez, that's a good call.
So I think it would be solid.
I think so. Nick, you didn't give your selection for who you would want as a sort of dynamic duo to create a Star War.
And that's because I couldn't fully come up with, like, I have half the answer, and it's been kind of a running joke for a while. And I feel like with Andor, we have gotten some of it. It is no secret that I'm a huge fan of the TV show The West Wing.
Right.
You know, I also love the other things that Aaron Sorkin has done. Studio 60, which was very underrated, did not have, have one season. Of course, Aaron Sorkin's one of those guys that works with people and then uses those same people, whether it's Sports Night, West Wing, Studio 60. I would love to see, we've joked for years, we wanted to see an Aaron Sorkin Star Wars, and it could have been the Imperial Senate, but West Wing. And we kind of get that with Andor. Like, we're getting the political machinations. We're getting, that part of it. I would still love to see Aaron Sorkin involved in writing some sort of Star Wars. Who goes with it to direct, I don't entirely know. And that's why I didn't give you an answer, because I didn't have one.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Can't be wrong if you don't answer it.
That is fair. That's fair. Well, since we didn't get any calls, I want to throw something out there and get your guys' thoughts. So I have I'm watching The Bad Batch. And I was watching it like at 5:30 in the morning yesterday, as you do, because that is truly the way they envisioned it, was in a dark room with your earbuds on your phone in front of your face in bed, because that's why they put so much effort into it. That's what they want you to do. But no, so as I'm watching it, it struck me that, and this is why I asked Ash the question, I kind of feel like, and I said earlier that some of the best Star Wars storytelling has been in animation, but I almost feel like Star Wars should be mostly animation. And it's weird for me to say, because it took me forever to get into Clone Wars. And as much as Christopher Sean is one of the coolest guys on the planet, I couldn't get into Resistance. But I think animation allows Star Wars to be as weird and huge and different as it can be. And that's why when you asked me about George, what would George do? I think George, that weird midichlorian story that we keep hearing sort of out there, do that in animation. I think if you brought the Mortis arc to television for the first time in live action, it would fail. It would flop. But as I was watching The Bad Batch, even just the fact that you can go to the level of artwork now, when they do
the visuals of it.
It's crazy. I was listening to our friends Thank the Maker this morning on their podcast. They do a weekly reviews of the show, and they mentioned it's like, they said it looks like concept art, that they just said, run with it. It looks great. So you now can literally do anything you want and not worry. Now, you got the volume and you got all the live action, and there's so much to be said for live action. But what do you guys think? Is Star Wars best told through animation, because the shackles are off? You can do literally anything you want.
I say yes. And, I don't make it a habit of trying to agree with you, because
but I'm always right. So
but you're always right. When you're right, you're right. But it's the depth and the breadth of what you can do with animation. And just looking at what we have right now, you have Clone Wars / Bad Batch. That's one style. You have Resistance. You mentioned Resistance. Here's one of my dirty little Star Wars secrets, besides the fact that I haven't read any High Republic.
That's not a secret.
I have still not made it past 3 episodes of Resistance. I've tried no less than 4 times. I know, and I'm not shitting on it. I'm just simply saying it didn't do it enough for me to keep going. And I want to know that story. I truly, truly do. But stylistically, you have Clone Wars, Bad Batch. You have Resistance. You have Rebels, which I love with every fiber of my being, and I talk about all the time. Then you get the Tales of Anthologies. You get Visions. You get Lego holidays. I mean, the Lego specials at all. Freemaker, holiday specials. Like, animation not only has the ability to tell every kind of story, but has the ability to tell it in every kind of visual, unique way. Like, you could get a hyper-realistic, something that looks like Madden football animated Star Wars series down the line. And you could go in and tell more of the old. And that's the other thing too. We've talked about this, I know, at different points. It also opens up, what do you want to do? Do you want to tell more stories set between Star Wars and Empire, animation lets you do it, and you don't have to de-age somebody and argue about Uncanny Valley. You can just tell a story. Do you want to do something for little kids that uses the original audio tracks from the original trilogy? You can do that too and put it on YouTube for 3 and 4 minutes at a time. It's the multiplayer, you know, as a baseball fan, you want that multi-tool utility player who can go play right field if you need him to. They can play shortstop if you need him to. Animation covers every one of those things and can be an all-star at the same time.
Well, I will say, and Lloyd, I'd love to have you weigh in on this as well. The biggest challenge to what I say as I say it, and I know I'm contradicting myself as I say it, but the biggest problem is nobody watches animation. And I don't mean that to be rude. My dad, Nick, you and I talk about this all the time.
I texted you this afternoon. I asked you, is your dad watching Bad Batch?
Watch Bad Batch? No.
And mine doesn't either. And we talk about our dads all the time.
So they're missing a great story, but it's a great place to tell the story. What are your thoughts, Lloyd?
No, I think animation's more of a generational thing, to be honest.
That could be. Yeah, that's true.
Like, were there cartoons and stuff like that? Yes. Okay. I don't like the Beatles' Yellow Submarine. Anyway, there were cartoons back then. Okay, in the dark times. So, but like, I think when they started becoming more and more like mainstream in the 80s and the 90s and stuff like that, I think a lot of like, you know, your parents, you know, and my parents by extension, they just didn't really care. Right. So when Star Wars jumped on it in the early 2000s, that ship sailed for a lot of the older generation, I feel like. But for, you know, for us kind of within, you know, a 15-20 year age bracket, it makes sense. So when people say like, oh, I don't like animation, I don't like how it looks, and that's fair, you know, that's perfectly fair. But that's also why Lucasfilm branched out and they went with Visions. You know?
Right, trying to bring it to people who like a different style.
Right. Sure. And I truly feel like if Lucasfilm capitalized on strictly a Japanese anime style story, it would kick off.
But again, anime, if you look at it, and I know anime has a huge following. I mean, that's like the understatement of the year. I get it. But it's a very specific genre, whereas Star Wars, like, so I think the way you have to do it, if you're going to commit to animation, you got to do a full length feature film, and it's got to be like PG-13, so that it's not just, oh, let's bring the kids to the movies this Saturday. There's a Star Wars movie and it's dealing with some pretty serious shit, and it can't be Clone Wars. Sorry, Clone Wars, that movie and it did not age well. It really has not aged well as far as the way it looks, etc. But I don't know. I think it allows you to do the story you want to do, right? Because although we do live in a world now where basically you can do anything you want on screen,
right?
But
there's also, if you talk about the generational thing, and this kind of hit me while you were talking, and something Lloyd said triggered it too. Thinking about animation, thinking about adults and generational, you know, how that connects. I see that point, but we also have to remember, especially, you know, for Pete and I, our dads, animation, Snow White was in like 1950 whatever.
Right.
And you have Snow White, Robin Hood, freaking Sword in the Stone. Like, those are the movies that I grew up with that were out before I was born, and those were our parents' generations. And our parents grew up with us as kids watching, you know, whether it wasn't, you know, for me it wasn't necessarily Aladdin, but for like my siblings it was. And you know, animation has been a thing. Popeye, like, there is a connecting point to animation for older generations. It's almost like reminding them, you used to get these stories that way too, but then you became a grown-up and you had to do real life hard stuff.
Those stories were never anything that, I mean, the closest thing you got to an adult story for them was Flintstones and Jetsons,
correct,
right?
And that was, and that was specific. But then you kind of fast forward and you get to the late 90s and 2000s, and you had things like The Simpsons, you had things like South Park, which were grown-up stories. Fast forward to 2000s, you have BoJack, you have frickin', what's the one on FX, the spy one?
Archer.
Archer, so freaking good.
Metalocalypse is one of my favorite shows ever, but I can't let my kids watch it.
Right, exactly. So there is that point, and sometimes it's just a matter of, like, I texted Pete literally like 5 hours ago, and said, hey, has your dad been watching Bad Batch? And he said, nope. because the thought that was going through my head was, I need to try and get my dad to watch Bad Batch. He's 75 years old, but like he should watch it. Like I think he would enjoy it if he would just give it the chance.
Right.
I think that's a huge issue though with a lot of people though, is that they view Star Wars as a child's story, and it's something that it's always struggled with.
Yeah.
Right.
Always.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Star Wars is it's one of those things where it's damned if it does and damned if it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, and as far as like the cartoon thing that goes, like the older generations that got used to that style. I mean, it was one cartoon movie, like you mentioned, Snow White, Sword in the Stone, that kind of thing. It was one of those movies every 4 or 5 years because they were handmade.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, nowadays you can pump that stuff out in a week.
Well, and they
2
can
weeks,
surprise
3 weeks.
us with a 6-part
Tales
of the Empire, which looks, honestly, as great as the Bad Batches looked, that trailer
Looks insane.
I mean, somebody posted on Twitter, I wish I could remember who it was so I give them credit for it, but they said, this is going to sound weird, but look at how good the dirt looks.
Yeah. Exactly right.
It's true.
Well,
but
and if you want to dial it back to cartoons, let's go all the way back to 1984 and Transformers the movie. Optimus Prime dies in like the first 20 minutes. There's some adult shit going on in that movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris Ryan's Our Friends talks about all the time being traumatized by exactly that adult moment in that movie.
But I think that's what Star Wars would benefit if they would take it and turn a 2.5 hour animated movie, kind of like a Studio Ghibli type thing, where it's like an actual like experience. It's not just like a movie; it's an experience.
Right.
So what if somebody took and cut together these 3 seasons of Bad Batch into a trilogy of movies? Because there's heavy stuff in these 3 like people are dying, people are kidnapped, kids are being trafficked. Like there's serious heavy adult things, but we're getting it in 28-minute chunks, and maybe it's just short enough that it's not fully like it hits, and we talk about it on social media and we spend time with it. But if you edited those 3, and people do this kind of crap on the internet all the time, take season 1 of the Bad Batch and edit it into a movie.
It would work.
It completely would work.
Because that first episode was over like an hour long.
Yeah.
And it would work. But the other 2 wouldn't, because there's too much missing in between each episode.
Right.
Well, but all the people who cry filler, right? You take that. I mean, look, and let's face it. This week's episode, right?
Not my favorite.
It wasn't your favorite, and honestly, it was a great 20-minute chase scene.
Yeah.
But it moved the story along a tick, which is fine. But
we've only got a few ticks left at this point, so we got to keep moving.
Well, and
last week,
I think there's some sort of contractual obligation of 15 episodes, and they're like, okay, well, we can stretch this one out, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think Star Wars and animation may be the way to go. Who knows? Gentlemen, this has been a ton of fun. We had Ash with us tonight. We got through some interesting news stories. We have Podathon coming up. I'm going to hit that one more time to remind people, listen, Podathon is coming on May the 4th. It will be also on Twitter. It will be on YouTube. We're going to put that link up very soon. And we are going to make some incredible announcements over the next couple, I'm going to say weeks. We're just waiting for some final stuff. All you need to know is you are not going to want to miss it. I know you're going to be at the movie theater. I get it. I know you're going to be hanging with your friends, watching Star Wars movies and having your Star Wars party. That is awesome. But you're going to want to check in with us. And go ahead and donate right now at bit.ly/Podathon24, all lowercase. Go there, donate today. For every $10 you donate, you're going to get 2 entries to win a Lucasfilm pack, to win Danua Nova. They're giving away a helmet, a $350 value. It's one of those, it's the X-Wing helmet that you're
the customizable X-Wing pilot helmet.
Yeah, you can put on your own, you can be your own character. Regal Robot, we're getting signed books. We have an autographs coming from, I can't say who she is yet, but we're getting autographs for you to win. So go and
there's the hint. It's a she.
Right. I've given one piece of information, probably too much. Oh wait, there's an email from Lucasfilm. They just canceled it. Sorry. My fault. No, but go and check that out. Make sure to join us at least for a couple minutes on May the 4th. Be a part of it. Be a part of making a wish come true for kids who need it most. This celebrates Make-A-Wish. The first 3 years, we've raised over $27,000 for Make-A-Wish. You can be a part of it. You can help us do more for kids who need it most. And listen, folks, I hate to be like all downer, but times are tough, and Make-A-Wish makes a huge difference for people.
Yes,
so,
we've had hosts. Mark Suter from Tarkin's Top Shelf. He himself was a Make-A-Wish kid growing up. One of my best friends here in Alabama, his daughter is a Make-A-Wish child. They have benefited from what Make-A-Wish does. It is a truly, truly impactful, important charity. And that's why we chose it, or y'all chose it. Pete, I wasn't involved at that point, but 4 years ago, that's why you guys picked it, because it has an impact on lives. And when you donate through the links on the website, thepotathon.com, bit.ly/potathon24, all of that money goes directly to Make-A-Wish. So jump in, help us out, and we're going to have a bunch of fun on May 4th, guaranteed.
Absolutely. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Thank you for hanging out. If you joined us on Twitter tonight, holy cow, so many of you, so much appreciate it. Feels like Twitter's the new place for us to hang out. So do that. Make sure if you are on YouTube, like, subscribe, and share. And hey, if you're on Twitter and you want to head over to the YouTube channel, we're only a handful of people away from
18
our 1,000
subscribers away from 1,000.
Oh my goodness. So if you're on Twitter, take a moment, head on over to YouTube, youtube.com/@the SSW Network. Hit subscribe. You don't have to watch us there. Watch us on Twitter. I don't care. We'll have fun together. We will continue to talk about Star Wars every single week. And Nick, may the Force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.